Sports history is full of surprising outcomes, both big and small. At times, these upsets defy all odds and come out of nowhere. From major championship games to individual matchups, here are the 10 most memorable upsets in sports history. These unforgettable moments have been immortalized in the annals of time, proving that anything can happen on any given day. Be ready for surprise endings and incredible feats as these remarkable events unfold before your eyes. 10. The Miracle on Ice. The Miracle on Ice refers to the semi-final match between the U.S. Olympic hockey team and the Soviet Union at the 1980 Winter Olympics in Lake Placid, New York. The Soviet team was heavily favored to win, having won 4 consecutive gold medals in the Olympics and being considered one of the best teams in the world. In the game, the U.S. team, made up mostly of amateur and college players, played a disciplined and inspired game, and managed to take a 4-3 lead with just over 10 minutes remaining in the third period. Despite the Soviets' efforts to tie the game, the U.S. team managed to hold on for the historic upset victory. The game, and the U.S. team's improbable victory, captivated the nation and is widely considered one of the greatest upsets in sports history. The reaction to the game was one of shock and jubilation, with people across the country celebrating the team's victory. The team went on to win the gold medal by defeating Finland in the final game. The game was also significant because it took place during the height of the Cold War, and the U.S. team's victory was seen as a symbolic victory over the Soviet Union. The game and the team's achievement were immortalized in the movie Miracle, which was released in 2004. The Miracle on Ice is widely considered one of the greatest moments in American sports history and one of the most memorable upsets in sports history. 9. Buster Douglas knocks out Mike Tyson. The fight between Buster Douglas and Mike Tyson in 1990, where Douglas knocked out Tyson, is considered one of the most memorable upsets in sports history. At the time, Tyson was considered one of the most dominant and feared boxers in the world, and he was heavily favored to win the fight. He had a record of 37-0 and held the undisputed heavyweight championship. In the fight, Douglas, who was a 42-1 underdog, came out aggressively and was able to knock Tyson down in the 8th round. Despite the knockdown, Tyson was able to get back on his feet and continue fighting. However, in the 10th round, Douglas landed a powerful combination of punches that sent Tyson to the canvas, and the fight was stopped. It was the first time in Tyson's career that he had been knocked out. The reaction to the fight was one of shock and disbelief, as many people had not expected Douglas to have a chance of winning. The victory was considered one of the biggest upsets in sports history, and it marked the end of Tyson's reign as the undisputed heavyweight champion. The fight was significant because it was the first time that Tyson had been defeated, and it was a reminder that upsets can happen in any sport, even when the odds are overwhelmingly against the underdog. Douglas's victory was also significant because it proved that Tyson was not invincible, and it opened the door for other fighters to compete for the heavyweight championship. 8. Leicester City's Premier League title. Leicester City's Premier League title in 2016 is considered one of the most memorable upsets in sports history. At the beginning of the season, Leicester City was a 5,000-1 outsider to win the Premier League, and they were considered one of the weakest teams in the league. However, they went on to have an incredible season, led by their manager Claudio Ranieri and players such as Riyad Mahrez and Jamie Vardy, and they managed to defy the odds and win the league. Throughout the season, Leicester City consistently performed well, winning many of their matches and displaying a level of resilience and determination that was unexpected. They were able to secure the title with 2 games remaining in the season, and they finished the campaign 10 points ahead of the second-place team, Arsenal. The reaction to Leicester City's title win was one of shock and disbelief, as many people had not expected them to have a chance of winning the league. The victory was considered one of the greatest upsets in sports history, and it captivated the nation and the world. The team and their achievement were celebrated not only for their performance on the field but also for their spirit, teamwork, and the story behind their success. The team's success and their story were an inspiration to many, and it will be remembered as one of the greatest moments in the history of the Premier League. 7. Villanova's NCAA Championship. Villanova's NCAA championship in 1985 is considered one of the most memorable upsets in college basketball history. The team, led by coach Rollie Massimino, entered the tournament as an 8th seed, and they were not considered a favorite to win the championship. However, they managed to defeat some of the top teams in the country, including the defending champion Georgetown Hoyas, in the final game. In the final game, Villanova played an inspired game and shot an incredible 78.6% from the field, which is still the record for the highest field goal percentage in an NCAA final game. They won the game 66-64, with their last-second shot hitting the mark, and secured the NCAA championship. The reaction to Villanova's championship win was one of shock and disbelief, as many people had not expected them to have a chance of winning the tournament. The victory was considered one of the greatest upsets in college basketball history, and it captivated the nation. The team and their achievement were celebrated not only for their performance on the field but also for their spirit, teamwork, and the story behind their success. 6. Appalachian State's upset of Michigan. Appalachian State's upset of Michigan in 2007 is considered one of the most memorable upsets in college football history. The game was the season opener for both teams, and it was played at Michigan Stadium in Ann Arbor. At the time, Michigan was a highly ranked Football Bowl Subdivision (FBS) team and a heavy favorite to win the game against Appalachian State, a Football Championship Subdivision (FCS) team. In the game, Appalachian State played an inspired game, led by their quarterback Armonte Edwards, who passed for 227 yards and ran for another 110 yards. They were able to defeat Michigan 34-32 with a last-second field goal, causing a historic upset. The reaction to the game was one of shock and disbelief, as many people had not expected the FCS team to have a chance of winning against the FBS team. The victory was considered one of the biggest upsets in college football history, and it captivated the nation. The game was also historic because it was the first time a FCS team defeated a ranked FBS team in the history of college football. The game was also a reminder of the importance of not underestimating any team, and that in sports, anything can happen. 5. Greece's Euro 2004 victory. Greece's Euro 2004 victory is considered one of the most memorable upsets in soccer history. At the time, Greece was not considered one of the top teams in Europe and they were not expected to have a chance of winning the tournament. However, they managed to defy the odds and win the tournament by defeating some of the strongest teams in Europe, including Portugal, the Czech Republic, and France. Greece played a defensive style of soccer that was difficult for the opposition teams to break through. They were able to secure their place in the final by defeating the host nation Portugal in the final minutes of the game with a 1-0 score. In the final, they defeated Portugal once again with a 1-0 score. The reaction to Greece's victory was one of shock and disbelief, as many people had not expected them to have a chance of winning the tournament. The victory was considered one of the greatest upsets in soccer history, and it captivated the nation and the world. Greece's achievement was celebrated not only for their performance on the field but also for their spirit, teamwork, and the story behind their success. The team's success and their story were an inspiration to many, and it will be remembered as one of the greatest moments in the history of the European Football Championship. 4. The mother of all upsets. The mother of all upsets refers to the semifinal match between the U.S. men's Olympic basketball team and the Soviet Union at the 1972 Summer Olympics in Munich, Germany. The U.S. team, made up of amateur players, was considered the heavy favorite to win the gold medal and had won the last 7 Olympic gold medals. In the game, the U.S. team had a 1-point lead with 3 seconds remaining in the game, but the Soviet Union was able to score on a last-second layup after a controversial official call, and the final score was 51-50 in favor of the Soviet team. The United States players were devastated by the loss and felt that the officials had robbed them of a victory. After the game, the U.S. team protested the outcome, but the officials denied their request to replay the final seconds of the match and the Soviet Union was awarded the gold medal. This outcome was considered one of the greatest upsets in sports history, and it was a significant disappointment for the U.S. team and the nation. The reaction to the game was one of shock and disappointment, as many people had not expected the U.S. team to lose the game. The outcome of the game was highly controversial, and it was a reminder that in sports, anything can happen. The event was also significant because it took place during the height of the Cold War and the U.S. team's loss was seen as a symbolic defeat to the Soviet Union. The game and the team's disappointment were immortalized in the documentary 1 Second to Glory, the 1972 Olympics and the Munich Massacre, which was released in 2008. In 1972, the U.S. men's Olympic basketball team, made up of amateur players, lost to the Soviet Union in the finals of the Olympics, considered one of the most shocking upsets in sports history. 3. The Miracle at Medina. The Miracle at Medina refers to the 2012 Ryder Cup, a biennial golf competition between teams from Europe and the United States. The event took place at the Medina Country Club in Illinois, USA. The U.S. team had a commanding lead heading into the final day of the competition, but the European team staged an incredible comeback and retained the Ryder Cup. The U.S. team had a 10-4 lead heading into the final day of the competition, needing only 4.5 points out of a possible 12 to win the cup. However, the European team won 8.5 points on the final day, securing a 14.5 to 13.5 victory. The European team's comeback was one of the greatest in the history of the Ryder Cup, and it was led by players such as Ian Poulter, Rory McIlroy, and Justin Rose. The reaction to the Miracle at Medina was one of shock and disbelief, as many people had not expected the European team to come back and win the cup. The victory was considered one of the greatest upsets in golf history, and it captivated the nation and the world. The European team's achievement was celebrated not only for their performance on the field but also for their spirit, teamwork, and the story behind their success. The event was also significant because it was the first time in history that the European team had retained the Ryder Cup on American soil. In 2012, Europe, a heavy underdog, defeated the United States in the Ryder Cup, one of the greatest comebacks in golf history. 2. The Miracle at the Meadowlands. The Miracle at the Meadowlands refers to a game that took place on November 19, 1978, between the Philadelphia Eagles and the New York Giants in the NFL. The game is remembered for one of the most improbable comebacks in NFL history. In the game, the Giants were leading 17-12 with just over a minute remaining in the game. The Eagles had the ball on their own 26-yard line with no timeouts remaining. The Giants were expecting the Eagles to run out the clock and take the loss. However, the Eagles quarterback Ron Jaworski completed a series of passes, including a crucial catch by Harold Carmichael that set up a touchdown with just seconds remaining in the game, and the Eagles won the game with a final score of 19-17. The reaction to the game was one of shock and disbelief, as many people had not expected the Eagles to come back and win the game. The victory was considered one of the most memorable upsets in NFL history, and it captivated the nation. The Eagles' achievement was celebrated not only for their performance on the field but also for their spirit, teamwork, and the story behind their success. The Miracle at the Meadowlands was a historic and memorable achievement, not only for the Eagles but also for the sport of NFL. The game was also a reminder of the importance of never giving up, and that in sports, the game is not over until the final whistle. In 1978, the Philadelphia Eagles, trailing 17-12, scored a touchdown with no time remaining to defeat the New York Giants, considered one of the most memorable upsets in NFL history. 1. The Rumble in the Jungle. The Rumble in the Jungle was a historic boxing match between Muhammad Ali and George Foreman, which took place in Kinshasa, Zaire, now the Democratic Republic of Congo, on October 30, 1974. At the time, George Foreman was considered the heavy favorite to win, as he was the reigning heavyweight champion and had a record of 40-0 with 37 knockouts. Muhammad Ali, on the other hand, was seen as past his prime, having been stripped of his title and losing his last fight to Joe Frazier. In the fight, Ali employed a strategy known as rope-a-dope, where he leaned against the ropes and absorbed Foreman's punches while conserving his energy. Foreman, known for his powerful punches, tired himself out, and in the 8th round, Ali unleashed a combination of punches that knocked Foreman down, winning by KO and reclaiming the heavyweight title. The reaction to the Rumble in the Jungle was one of shock and disbelief, as many people had not expected Ali to have a chance of winning the fight. The victory was considered one of the greatest upsets in boxing history, and it captivated the nation and the world. Ali's achievement was celebrated not only for his performance in the ring but also for his strategy, willpower, and the story behind his comeback. The fight was also significant because it was held in Africa, and it was seen as a symbol of black empowerment, Ali's victory was celebrated not only by Americans but also by people all over the world. In 1974, Muhammad Ali, a 7-1 underdog, defeated George Foreman to regain the heavyweight championship, one of the biggest upsets in the history of boxing. Some of the most amazing sports moments have come from unexpected upsets. It is a reminder that anything can happen in sports, and it is why people continue to watch. The 10 most memorable upsets in sports history have demonstrated that with enough determination, even the impossible can become reality. These historic wins will go down in history as some of the greatest feats that athletes have ever achieved.